It's been a long time since Bioware has graced us with anything resembling their old selves. KOTOR, Mass Effect, Dragon Age, titles like these were one of a kind and delivered some of my favorite stories and characters in gaming ever. Usually when a style of gaming bubbles up and proves successful, other games spring up trying to replicate that same style. Their blend of action, character development, memorable cast, and choice-driven narrative really struck a chord with a wider gaming audience. Nobody else has truly stepped up to fill that void ever since. This is where developer Spiders enter the fray. They've been slowly working up to a title as ambitious since Greedfall. Games such as Technomancer showed promise and ingenuity despite the much smaller budget and some technical limitations. Greedfall is them at their finest, with a clear step up from their previous games and the best RPG I've played this year. Greedfall predominantly takes place on an island called New Serene, a 17th century inspired port town with many different factions at play. You will create and customize a character you known as De Sarde. Moments after you create your character, the game wastes no time introducing the player into its fascinating world. On the surface it seems straightforward. Pirates, cutlasses, and blunderbusses almost make it seem like it's gearing up to be a massive pirate RPG. The truth goes beyond its initial impressions. Soon after beginning the game, other elements such as magic, alchemy, and a race of druid-like folks living on New Serene set the table for a great story. Even the obvious trope of civilized colonial forces clashing with the tribal native race might come across as a little too on the nose with their own history. However, the actual game develops in interesting ways and moves beyond the cliches you'd expect from that setting. Spiders has elements that made the Bioware game so special in Greedfall, but they aren't afraid to go in their own direction and carve out their own unique identity. The armor and skill system is vast. A unique web of skills, traits, and powers truly make the cast feel diverse. Having to balance environmental and dialogue skills really help the choices pop. Each tree feels empowering when you start down them, and the RPG aspects are deep enough to make the choices you make impactful. Many RPGs and games as a whole fail to allow for true specialization, and Greedfall succeeds in letting players who invest in their playstyle all the way reap the benefits of committing to their choices. The armor and weapon system also separates it from the pack, ditching the played out gear score system and calling back to the good old days of character levels and straightforward stats actually benefits Greedfall tremendously. The game has layers of armor and insane customization, but it doesn't sacrifice a detailed and easy to read layout, and it's also very easy to play whether you're on a controller or a mouse and keyboard. The game also has some really unique sets, from standard pirate gear or more fantastical robes and staffs. You can even make yourself look like the guy from Brotherhood of the Wolf, and you know who I'm talking about. The game's look is completely unique, and it's one of Greedfall's best features. Now, complementing the deep customization is the aspect so many role-playing games fail at, and that's the companions. By the end of Greedfall's 30-hour campaign, I had amassed a modest crew. Memorable characters such as Kurt and Ciora are not household names now, but they will be once players get their hands on Greedfall and play through this campaign. They also represent different factions, and the factions in Greedfall are vast and multi-layered and have a lot to offer. They are very different, their storylines are usually very compelling, and the characters and the stuff you meet from them add a lot to the gameplay. You could even get armor from their troops and disguise yourself and sneak into their base, and actually the game has pretty good stealth mechanics for an RPG. These companions have so much variety and depth that even though there's a small amount of them, they all matter. And no matter what style of gameplay you may prefer, Greedfall will have somebody who can complement that style perfectly. These companions all come with their own unique stories, histories, and behaviors. The way the story can change and shift their allegiances based on your in-game choices is also Greedfall's defining trait. Now, combat is probably Greedfall's biggest improvement from Spider's previous titles, but also where Greedfall shows the constraints of its ambition. Combat is in real time with the very useful and almost necessary tactical pause feature. It has a decent dodge, a good parry, and a handful of shortcuts that allow you to have some diversity in your combat approach. The limited budget also shows itself in the combat, and despite big improvements from Technomancer, it still has a lot of rough edges. Animations can appear wonky, as physics and clothing can give Spawn a run for their money when they fly out for no apparent reason. The camera when fighting indoors can frequently be a problem. Locking onto enemies is vital for combat, but when the camera gets stuck on a wall or random objects in the environment, it's no good. In most games, these problems are minor, but Greedfall is actually difficult at times. Oftentimes, a clean hit or two, or a gunshot to the chest, can get you killed outright. Now thankfully, the tactical pause comes in handy during the bigger battles, but these issues and some outright bad animations can frustrate more than elate. Those technical issues and some of those problems with combat are where most of my issues with Greedfall start and end. The game has some rough visuals, and some of its story threads don't always live up to their initial premise, but Greedfall more than makes up for it with confidence in its world, story, and various gameplay systems all interacting seamlessly together. Greedfall fills a void in character-driven RPGs, and delivers an experience worthy of comparison to some of the genre's best. I give Greedfall an 8.2. It is Spider's best game, and despite some of the limitations, I was so engrossed in its story, world, and gameplay systems that I was quickly overlooking some of the minor issues that do exist but didn't stop my enjoyment of Greedfall. I hope everyone enjoys this review. If you did, please like, comment, and subscribe. I'll see all of you next time.